All right. Welcome, folks, to the first ever Big Data Bowl film review session. My name is Michael Lopez. I am the Senior Director of Football Data and Analytics at the NFL. I'm joined by a couple of my analytics staffers in the football data team, including Tom Bliss and Jack Versampire. We are lucky enough to be also joined by Usama Young. Usama is a 9-year veteran of the National Football League. I'm thinking 9 years because I looked up his profile on Pro Football Reference. But Usama played for a couple teams and has some experience that will certainly help participants this year. And we're really excited to learn. We took several audience questions, which we'll try and drop in today as well. We'll review a couple of punt plays from Usama's time in the league. And with that, I'll turn it over to Usama. Usama, just maybe give an introduction, the teams you played for, your experiences in terms of special teams, and then we'll hit the ground running here.
All right. Well, thank you for this, Mike and team. I'm excited about this because I haven't talked about special teams in a while. I played for the New Orleans Saints, the Cleveland Browns, and the now Las Vegas Raiders. We got a few clips of me on punt team in my earlier years with the Saints, playing some gunner, playing wing on punt team, and also playing jammer on punt return. These years, I really did value special teams play because I understood that was how I was going to make the team. I jumped on it every chance I got, went all out. Special teams is usually the longest plays of games, and you got to make the most out of them. All out sprints, all out effort. And punt team is one of those effort plays that usually, if it's all about effort, whoever's working the hardest is going to win on that play.
Awesome. So Jack, why don't you share your screen? And I think what we can start to do is with roughly a dozen years looking back, be able to assess Usama's effort on some of these plays. All right, so here's our first clip. The Saints are the punting unit here. And I think before we even get into the first play, Usama, might help our audience, which is participants in this year's Big Data Bowl that are getting the tracking data on the punt plays. It might help just to review, and we'll start with the punt team here. What are the roles and the names of some of the players in terms of, and I know you referenced gunner earlier, you referenced wing earlier. How would you sort of roughly outline the roles for each of the folks on the punt play here?
All right, so I'll assume that everyone knows who the center is. That's now the long snapper. We also have a punter who's lined up furthest back. He's going to punt the ball. The two outside ones in the typical wide receiver positions are the gunners. The linemen that are closest to the center are both guards and tackles, similar to the offensive line. The two guys that are close to the line that are in the wing spot, right outside edge of the tackle, couple yards back with their feet in staggered positions. Those are the wings. And then you have that guy that is closer to the punter. He's the fullback and typically makes all the calls, but he's not the fullback in this play. He's called the personal protector. So he has the communication that goes between the punt team, the gunners. Typically, they don't necessarily hear them. The gunners are zoned out. They're on their mans, and they're trying to get down the field as quickly as possible to stop the return.
Perfect. All right, let's run this clip, and we'll watch the Saints on this play.
Cool. And just to say, the wide angle is for the gunners. So this is who I'm watching. I'm watching all gunner play right now. I'm not watching anything inside. I'm at the bottom of the screen, and we take an outside release. I take an outside release, and the top gunner took an inside release. That shows me that we both probably thought that the ball was going to be kicked to the left. And if you rewind it, start that play back over, Jack. If you rewind it, typically at this area of the field, you can pause it. Yeah. At this area of the field, we're midfield. As gunners, we're thinking that the punter is going to punt toward the sidelines. He's going to punt it toward the sidelines, possibly trying to get it inside the 20-yard line, no return. And we usually would go toward the side of the hash. So the ball is on the right hash. So we would expect it to go to the right. But with the Gunners releases, I'm not sure if we made a call to say, you know what, we're one-on-one, we could beat this guy individually and we could both release or choose our best release. But obviously we got a big leg in there. Thomas Morstead, he punted it close to the out of bounds, and we made it happen with no return anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the returner had much of a chance there to field that one.
Nope. And now you could pause it here. So as the internal guys, the guards, the center, well, the long snapper, the wings, I told you that 41, he's the personal protector here, Roman Harper. And on this play, he's looking at everyone in the box. You count these individuals, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 individuals, but those 3 backers, they're standing up. So that lets us know that they're not in an offensive and aggressive position, in a rush position. So Roman probably said, New York is 8 in the box, safe, and then we punt it. That's telling everybody New York is saying that we're going to go right. And it's also saying that it's 8 men in the box. If we were going to go left, we would call LA, Nevada, some city or state to the left, and then we would release to the left. But on this call, he probably said New York, safe. Those guys counted out who they would block. So 56, he's the internal lineman on the right side, and he would typically block the closest one to him. 97 would block number 2, so, and that would be the guy that's off the ball. And then 29 would block the guy. 14, Weems, that's the edge rusher. So they count 1, 2, 3, and the guys on the left do the same thing. But since Roman might have said New York, the long snapper is going to go right, Roman's going to block left, and then we go ahead and attack the punt.
I like the naming for left versus right. What if the call was like Kansas City?
We would not do that because that would confuse everybody. We try to stay with the left coast or the right coast. That's too funny.
Very, very cool. And yeah, you can see, and just to clarify, in this play, Usama, you were the gunner on the punter's left, correct?
Yes.
So this punt goes out of bounds, good field position, well, good punting, and so bad field position for the Falcons. One question that came up from the audience, and I know you played into this a little bit with the Gunners, but will all the players on the punt team tend to know the direction of the punt, and that would come up from New York or LA?
Yeah, so let me take a step back on New York or LA. New York or LA is mainly saying the protection. It's not necessarily saying the direction. And even looking at this, if you look at where the punter is aligned and the ball is aligned, it looks as though 4 is aiming to your left. And I thought that was Thomas Morstead. It's not Thomas Morstead right there. But 4, it looks like he's aiming to his left, correct? You see how he's kind of angled to that way? So it looks like he would like to hit the ball left. But at the same time, when we first break the huddle, and when we say huddle, we huddle on the sideline as a punt team, we'll either say we're going right or left. The protection, the LA or New York, that's telling us which way the center and the personal protector are going to go, and then we'll release. So earlier I said we're going New York here. I misspoke. I looked at where this guy was aligned on the long snapper. He's on the left side. The long snapper is going to go toward his left to block him. And the 41 will play off of him and go to the right.
The long snapper also looks like he snaps the ball to the right a little bit. Like the punter is like almost a yard. Are long snappers that good? Is that where the punter wants it? How does that go?
At this point, you've got really good long snappers. You got some that are, average, like every player on the field. You got different ones that are better at certain things. We had a pretty good, pretty accurate long snapper that put the ball in the right place most of the time. If we were going to the left, he would typically aim to a certain side. If we were going to the right, he would aim to a certain side. By the punter's alignment, sometimes that gives him a little slight edge in terms of how he can directional punt down the field. And if you put it, it's similar to being a shooter. on a basketball court. Certain shooters like to receive the ball at a certain area when they receive a pass. That's the same way for punters. They want to receive that pass, that snap at a certain area so that they can step and be in smooth rhythm to get the ball off their foot.
Awesome. Let's load up our second clip. We can watch the end of this one go through. Our next clip, so that one, the Saints, I think, had a nice directional punt, goes out of bounds. Some team strategy certainly involved there potentially, as well as, like Usama said, the alignment of the punter and the personal protector and the long snapper and how that interplay works.
Yeah,
I thought this. Go ahead.
Yeah, my bad. Go ahead.
Well, I think the next clip here shows facing a block attempt. And this is a different, whereas the Falcons on that last play, they weren't going to block it. It looks like on this one, the main goal here for the Colts is to try and block the punt.
Absolutely, that is correct. So when we first look at this film, we look at the two gunners outside. They're singled up. Since they're singled up and it's a punt return out there, you got 8 people in the box. I'm actually in the wing, at the wing position here. I'm at the bottom wing, and I'm looking at my side and my immediate threats. Also knowing the punt, the personal protector's aim, he's playing off the center. I look at this guy that's the immediate threat to the long snapper / center. He's going to probably make a New York call here and be alert for the twist. And the personal protector and center will play off of that mode, and you can see it when you run it. Yep, New York call. Gunners have free releases, make it easy on them. Another one inside the 20, good call. So right here where I talked about that New York call, now Timo's in the game. We've got the long snapper who's gonna go right because the New York call that 31 made. 31 is gonna go left and play off that twist. 59 at the left guard, he is going to take either the guy that's standing up or whichever one twists off of the 2 outside guys, the 2 outside rushers. So you got 2 outside rushers that are typically lined up and matched up with the wing and the tackle. But if this guy twists outside, they'll make a switch. If they just rush straight in, we've got the long snapper is going to take the one closest to him. 59 is going to take the one that's actually in a 2-point stance right here. 50 is going to take the number 2 guy from the outside, and 80 is going to take the edge guy. I'm looking back at this, and this is Jimmy Graham at the wing. Rookie year, Jimmy Graham playing wing position. So that's before he started catching touchdowns at tight end. You can go ahead and run it.
Awesome. Oh, I was just going to ask, when you see this alignment, can you tell that all of the down linemen are going to rush based on the fact that they're all in 3-point stance?
That's another tell, and you can look at that and say, you know what, it's likely. The one thing that I'll say when you're protecting for punt, you know that the one of your toughest threats is a good rush. Because even if they're not planning to hold you up and get a return in, if they rush well, that's going to keep you in the box, and it's going to take away from how well you cover. So if these guys get off the ball quickly and they get up in the protection's chest and hold them up after they rush, that's going to make it even harder for the return team, for the punt team to cover, and make it easier for the return team to put together a nice return.
Cool. So is on these, when you're defending against a punt block attempt like this, is the technique similar to what you might see on offense in terms of like a blitz, or is the blocking technique different in these situations?
Yeah. So I would equate the wing steps and the tackle steps similar to an offensive tackle pass protecting on a defensive end's rush. I'm right here, I'm at a right wing, and my first step with that staggered foot, that right foot, is usually back a half a yard. And then I kick the other foot back another half yard. And I kick one more time on both sides, and then I plant my feet and set. So that's a pocket that we want to open up for our punter to have a smooth kick. It's not ideal if you take it back. Close friend of mine, 59, Anthony Waters, he kind of gives up a soft edge in his protection. He's the left guard. If you go back to the very start, 59 gives up a little soft edge on his right foot, and he kind of gets in, his rusher gets inside of the pocket. That's not what we want long-term, but those guys that can get up under your leverage and sometimes catch you with your foot off the ground, that's a tough one to defend, but he holds his ground and we're able to get the punt off.
In terms of the number of blockers on each side, is that something that will be discussed at the beginning? You know, if you got one gunner on each side, you got the long snapper and a punter, that leaves 7 left. You can either go 4 and 3 or 4 and 3 in terms of left, right. How does that choice get made in terms of, you know, right now there's an extra player on one, like what goes into that? Is that called pre-snap, or will teams change that when they get out there?
Teams will change it. Teams will play around with alignment. They might have an overload. They could go 5 and 3. They can go 6 and 2. They might back out, you know, 3 of those guys, and then it's just 5 as a rusher. The one thing we've got to do as a punt team is wait until the ball is kicked before we cross that line of scrimmage. So that's one of the rules where as a lineman, similar to a pass play, the lineman just can't run down the field. You got to wait, and then you can go. You got to block and protect, and then you can go down the field. So a guy like myself, 80 and 28 and 31, we can release as quickly as we can. Ideally, we would like to run down the field unimpeded, but on this punt play, we've got to block first and then release. If say that guy's standing up on the left side right now, the third one from the left, we moved him over to the right side, and now we've got a 5 and 3. We would, as a personal protector, we would call an overload to the right. That way, the long snapper will now block to the right, and the personal protector will go to the right, and we've got straight up one-on-ones with 59, 50, and 80. If it goes even further with the overload, and the guy that's covering 59 right now will move to the right as well, and then it's 3-on-2, then we would shift it all the way over, and each one will move their eyes to that right side as well. But then that would change up the game plan for the punter, because now the punter knows it's an overload to that side. We will probably punt the ball to the left.
And then, so you mentioned having to block first and then release. And this is an audience question. And the person who asked the question prefaced it by saying, I hope this isn't a dumb question. So this person hopes that you don't think it's a dumb question. How do you know when to run downfield? You're making your block, there's a collision there. Is it as simple as waiting until you hear the thud, or is there some other signal in terms of releasing to go downfield?
Definitely not a dumb question. Not a dumb question. You have a mental clock in your head. And if you count 1, 2, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, whatever that is that you count, you know that ball is going to be kicked or punted at the time, and you can release. A lot of times, if you rewind the tape real quick before we chat, a lot of times the punt is you're wound up in your block that it's going to go longer than 2 seconds anyway. But if you don't have a block and you don't have anyone in front of you, you just take that 1, 2 count and then go. No, so not a dumb question at all. You got your mental clock going. And if you hear 2 thuds, that's the thing you don't want to hear. Because if you hear 2 thuds, you hear that, that means that the punt probably got blocked, and you better turn and run and try to recover, pick up the ball, go the other way, or tackle whoever might recover that block punt.
Great. And now you release, and we can watch you here as number 28. You release downfield. It looks like your path here you're purposely, you start to veer right,
Yes.
which is a little bit because of the ball, but is there also some element of you want to be further right to, in case the returner goes there? How does that develop?
Man, I'm glad you asked that, Mike. So everyone has their lane. It's a little bit easier to line up on kickoff and run down your lane because you all are already lined up in it. You know, as a kickoff team, you're lined up across the field. You can just run straight unless someone gets in your way and blocks you, then you have to weave. Now on punt team, you have to disperse to your lanes. And that's something that goes into angles of departure. As a wing, my responsibility was to contain the ball. After the ball is caught by the punt returner, I don't want him to get outside of my left shoulder. So I keep my left shoulder on his outside, and that will keep him contained within my reach to go back to my teammate. Football, the ultimate team game. That's why I fell in love with it. Everyone has to work together and play off of their partners. If you saw me when I first released, I wasn't in a dead sprint. I was kind of just seeing where the ball was going. I was looking at the guys ahead of me to see where they were departing, and I would have played off of my partner in front, 43 or 47. So if you rewind it, 47 was in my lane initially. So I said, okay, if he continues to widen out, I'm going to go inside. But then when he started to straighten up and I saw that the ball was to the right, I went wider. So everyone on the punt team has their lane. I typically will release and I would go about 5 yards from the sideline. 47 will go about 5 yards from the bottom of the numbers. The next person will be on the numbers because we have a punt right. So our lanes are going to go toward the right to keep the ball walled into that area. The guys on the left, 80, he wants to keep the ball on his right shoulder. He's the left wing, but he doesn't want to contain them from the other number. He wants to contain them from the hash.
Awesome. All right. I think that covers this one. Good stuff. As we load up the next clip, we've seen you as a gunner. We've seen you as a winger. Which did you like more?
Oh man, younger years, I definitely say gunner. I was at my top speed. I could go 1-on-1 or 1-on-2 with any of them. It didn't matter. And also, you know, the eyes were on you. Most of the time, guys are either watching the ball or they're watching those double teams on the outside. So gunner by far. Now, when I got a little bit older, the wing, oh my goodness, you're usually blocking linebackers or strong defensive backs. So those guys are fast, they're strong, they know how to use their leverage to kind of get up under you, and they hold you up because a good punt return team typically knows how to rush and also knows how to make a hold up look like a rush. So they run into you as a wing and you're already caught on the defensive because you see the first steps as a wing or interior lineman is to retreat. You're sometimes still in retreat mode when those guys get on your chest, and now you've got to throw them off and disengage. So that's one of the toughest parts about being a wing. You're backing up. The guy on the rush has a two-way go on you, and you've got to get him off of you and then get downfield fast. So ultimately, gunner's my favorite. Wings, least favorite. Personal protector is second favorite. Because if you watch, sometimes a personal protector, they can just go. They can just go. If they don't have any threats, they just get up out of there and run down the field.
Awesome. So this is our last of Usama on the punt team. The final two after this, we'll get into punt return. This one is interesting, and we can run it because it results in pinning the team back, and a nice job of downing the punt. So I think it would be interesting to go into the sort of the strategy around whether it's your gunner or your wing. What is the technique? Is it practice? Is it just effort? What goes into making sure that punt doesn't go into the end zone?
It's probably my favorite part. My favorite part being a gunner is when you get to down it at the 1 yard line. And I'm at the wing right here, and I get one of those rushers that's strong and pushes me back. I had to hold my ground. But ultimately, we're in the middle of the field. If you look at where 6, Thomas Morstead is angled, you can see that he looks like he's going right with it. he looks like he's going to go right by how he's kind of the long snapper is going to put it a little to his left, and he's going to go right with the punt. Now the gunners, they both release. The one on the left releases to his right. The one on the outside releases to his right. So the punt looks like it's supposed to be one of those right on the hash. Let's see. Yeah, they both release right. The ball's supposed to go right. Now, on these plays, as a gunner, you got three things to look at. You got your man that's blocking you, impeding your progress. You got the ball, but then you also have the punt returner. Punt returners will lie to you. They'll do the fair catch signal, wave, and if they do that, typically you'll get in front of them to make sure that they don't muff the ball. If they muff the ball, you'll want to jump on it. This guy right here, I'm not sure if he did the wave, but he ran up as if the ball was going to be shorter. Malcolm did a great job. That's Malcolm Jenkins right there. Did a great job of not paying any attention to that returner and going straight to get his back feet close to that white line, the goal line. He doesn't want to go into the goal line because if the ball touches him while he's there, or if the ball crosses that area, that's going to be a touchback. Now, rule changes have changed throughout. So now it's not about where he's at, it's about where the ball is at. And as a gunner, you're getting there, you're running down, you're getting to your spot as quickly as possible. As soon as the first gunner gets down and sees a fair catch, he lines up on that goal line. The second gunner down gets in front of the punt returner just in case the ball goes to him.
This is an audience question, which I think is relevant for this punt especially. In all the times practicing and then executing in games, were there punters that were just better at being able to bounce the ball so it doesn't roll into the end zone?
Absolutely.
And then if there were, like how does that go?
Absolutely. So I've been able to play with a few good punters throughout my years. Thomas Morstead being the best one. He had the nickname the leg. He had an innate ability to punt the ball out of bounds. He had an innate ability to have the ball settle and within that 10-yard line, but he also could boot that thing 60 yards if he wanted to. Most punters don't have all that. Most punters don't have the power and the finesse. I had one in with the Raiders, Marquette King, who just had a strong leg. He would boot that thing 60 yards. It's just effortless, but wasn't the best when it came to directional punting. Reggie Hodges, the Browns, similar. He had a leg that, could put it wherever you wanted the ball to be, but necessarily didn't have one that would drive or outpunt his coverage. Now, it's also a benefit. It's also a benefit to have those, but it could be tough if you got a punter that's got this strong leg and don't have a fast enough coverage team, because then you've got a returner with a lot of time on his hands to get the ball, make a decision, and the return team set up a nice return for him.
Awesome. Anything else you see on this clip?
Yeah, rewind it one time. This is probably the nightmare for a personal protector right here. 31, you got to rush. You don't know whether this guy's going to rush or he's going to hold up, but this guy 31 is about 180 pounds. He's dealing with some 250 pounders in there. He gets in the middle of whether he should cut the guys, that means block them low, or he should stand up and hit. And this guy just basically swallows him up, and he's no use for the punt team on the ground.
I don't know if you were taught that technique that he
No way. Pearson Preload, he would be mad at me right now, but that's a 13-year vet. I respect him. He's a heck of a ball player. He just got caught in the mix right there. It happens to everybody.
I'm trying not to laugh because I just know that if I was in that same situation, I feel like I would do the same thing. You try not to get.
It happens so quickly. You got to make decisions. As you got to make decisions as fast as possible. And sometimes, it is to your detriment, but ultimately it's the team. He took on two there.
Yep. I mean, listen, you're down the punt at the 2-yard line. So
Yeah.
as you
Yes.
said, everyone executes their job, and it works out.
Yep.
Let's jump into punt returns here, and we're gonna we're gonna look at a clip where Usama is blocking a gunner to start, and so thinking about, obviously we looked at plays where you were the gunner, and now you're blocking a gunner. What is that interplay like? And then thinking back to your time, what are some of the strategies that you would use to execute the blocks on gunners in order to prevent them from getting down the field?
All right. So before I get into the play, yeah, I'll hone in on that for sure. I immediately look at splits for the gunners, see how close they are to the sideline, because ultimately as a defender, you got help. And even though I'm one-on-one here at the bottom, I have the sideline as my help. I would like for the sideline to be a little bit closer, but now I've got to change up my help and say, okay, I'm going to step inside and kind of force him to go outside. And if he does go inside, I hope that he runs into one of these rushers, or in this case, we've got a return set up. So if I can slow him down, I typically would step with my right foot first because I want to protect my inside and I want to force him outside. So I'll step with a little 6-inch step to the right, and then I'll proceed to put my hands on him and impede his progress as best I can while my feet are moving. I can't do this flat-footed. I got to do it with my feet moving. I can't just lunge. Got to keep my head, my eyes, my chest over my shoulder, over my knees, and it's speed on speed. Match up, may the best man win.
Let's take a look. In this play, you were the blocker in the bottom of the field, correct?
Yes.
How would you grade yourself?
So if you start back over, I would say that I did well. I got the job done because I stopped him from getting in our punt returner's face. I have a minus because I took a false step. I stepped up instead of stepping laterally. You know, you want the guy to step laterally first. So I stepped up with my right foot instead of stepping laterally, which could have been a bad thing if he was faster than me. The good thing is that I was faster than him and I could just run with him and kind of just impede on his progress throughout the move. We usually do some hand play throughout, slow him down, and then once you can latch on, you latch on to the inner parts, inner numbers. Sometimes that shoulder pad area where you can't get called for holding unless he gets outside of your frame.
I mean, the reality is, I mean, the gunner you're going against never gets anywhere close to the returner here. So I got to give you a plus. Although,
yeah, so 15. Well, I'm sorry, 15 yards is A++. 10 yards is an A+. So yeah, I did my job, and now it's off to the races because we got a explosive guy back there returning the ball. And when I look at this play, I love it because we called this. We said we wanted to set up a wall right. You'll see some of the guys at the beginning. What's up? Hold on. My son just came in. I told you when he hears me talking ball, he wants to come in and not talk ball.
yeah,
It's all right. Yeah.
it's all right.
So we got this wall set up, and it started from the beginning of the tape where we had guys rush, and then we also had guys that were holding up as well, and then we had some guys just retreat from the start to set up the wall.
Yeah, let's take a look at the end zone shot because I think that's a clear look at it.
Some of these blocks are no longer legal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So before we see the end zone shot,
Okay.
you see the 2 blindside blocks here, and we'll get a good look at them here too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about that, and sort of thinking about how the game has changed relative to when you played?
So So I remember as a younger player, you look forward to not necessarily the blindside blocks, but you look forward to some of those big hits that are going to spring your return. And the big hits can be a part of deflating the other team's sideline as well. But ultimately, when we get on these returns and we set up this wall, we set up the wall for those blindside blocks. Guys don't see it coming. You take them off guard. They're in their pursuit angles. They're thinking that they've got the return man lined up, and pow, there goes a block, and you no longer can get there. Now, the game has changed in an extent, and it changed while I was playing it, where instead of taking them on full speed, we would turn our bodies and just shield the guys. Now, they don't have to do that here because these are legal blocks. But now you see, I think it's 56 that's about to block the first guy going to the ball. You see in 27, both of these guys could turn their bodies and still get the job done to stop them without the big hits.
Makes sense. And that follows some of the work the competition committee and health and safety have done regarding player health and safety. So that's a good explanation. And we see a type of play here that we wouldn't expect those blocks in today's game.
Right. If you go to the tight shot, the start of the punt from the end zone view, you'll see, I think it's yeah, okay, pause it right here. You got 29 and 23 that are about to exit. And as a personal protector, you know they're exiting and you know that a return is coming. So the personal protector for the Vikings here, he's probably like, oh man, he's yelling, return left. And we're setting up that return right. But since we've got such a good rush and hold up on these guys, they're not able to get out of their lanes. And the first part of the attack came from protecting Reggie with good gunner play, good gunner protection. So these guys are still holding up. You got some guys on the ground. You got Reggie protected, and now he's got room to scan. He's scanning, and his only threat is the gunner that's more than 10 yards away from him. And now he's thinking, if I make him miss, I can get to my wall. He makes him miss. He makes another one, and now he's at his wall. And another highlight, band is marching.
Nice return. Thinking about returners that you played with, Reggie, we'll show another highlight here in a second. It was easy to find highlights with him involved. Who are some of the other ones that you remember either being on the return team for that were electric when they got the ball, or alternatively, when you were a gunner or a wing on the punt team that you were like, oh goodness, how am I going to tackle this guy?
So another one is a teammate of mine. He was a teammate in college as well, Joshua Cribbs. So Joshua Cribbs, he didn't have Reggie's speed. He didn't have the same shake or wiggle as Reggie in terms of juke and elusiveness. He just had a level of balance. He broke tackles, even if we didn't have a wall set up for him, even if we didn't, truly execute the game plan, he found a way to just make it happen. And Josh is another guy that plays so fearlessly. I can rarely remember him calling fair catch. So as a jammer or as a guy that's protecting or a guy that's covering the kick, covering a punt, you've got to be aware of that. You got to know that this guy rarely calls fair catch. Even if we have coverage on him, he might break a tackle and he's just elusive. So I'll say that, of course, Reggie will be number one. Josh Cribbs will be number two. Playing against Devin Hester in Chicago, we just tried not to punt to him. We ultimately said we're not going to punt to him. We're going to avoid him at all costs. And gladly enough, I didn't really have to worry about him too much.
And that there was actually an audience question about that. So I should have referenced that. This was this was somebody who was saying, like, do you vary strategy based on who the returner is? And it seems like this is something that teams would prep for in pregame meetings and things like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of my close friends, a guy named Ray Ventrone, he's now the special teams coordinator for the Colts. Ray, he was one of those guys that just film study. He would come into special teams meetings and tell us about tendencies of punt teams, tendencies of punt returners, kickoff teams. And I mean, some guys just have that memory that they just don't forget stuff. So he would come in, he would call out certain things. He would say, hey, when this guy is aligned here, look out for this. When this jammer is here, when this team gets into this position and you see a stagger, they're probably going to loop this defender. And it's certain guys that have that ability, that acumen that allows them to study things like that. Myself, I kind of had tunnel vision. I would look at my guy or whoever I have to defend against or attack, and I'm looking at their tendencies. And that's typically how I would, because if I do too much, it would just consume me, and I'll have too much to think about.
Awesome. It seems like we need to, when the time comes, share some big datable findings with Ray Ventrone and see what he thinks of what folks come up with.
Absolutely. Before this meeting, I definitely had called him and said, hey, I don't remember, what was that call we had for 6 men in the box? And he's like, solid. Then I said, did we used to name the number too? Because with the Raiders, we would name a number. With Ray as the personal protector, he wouldn't say a number, he would call right or left.
Very cool. And then this is going to be our last clip. And I think I'll start with the note that this is the first of the 5 clips where both gunners are double teamed. So I'll start, and before we run the clip, what goes into the decision to double team gunners, and then kind of following up, who are some of the best gunners that you remember going against, and what were they good at?
So we decided to double the gunners against them, and I know it because we knew that we could put together a return, we could win, and Reggie didn't necessarily need a right or left wall. He just needed an opening. So when we doubled them, this is a middle return. We would double guys that were really good. You mentioned who would I say would be some of those top guys. When I first got in the league, it was a guy named Kasim Osgood. He was a gunner for the Chargers, and I mean, he was a taller guy. He had long arms. He would lock out and run full speed ahead. Most guys can't run really fast with their arm locked out on the guy, but he would lock out, get distance, and then extend and make plays. As I progressed into my years, Slater from the Patriots ended up being a great gunner. And Taiwan Jones, I think he's still playing somewhere, maybe in Indianapolis now. But Taiwan Jones is probably one of the fastest guys I've seen play that people don't know about. So this guy, he's been playing gunner throughout his entire years. He played running back in college. They moved him to defensive back. He's been a special teams ace. And what makes him so good is not only his speed, but he's like that pound for pound strength guy too. Strong as ever in the weight room. If you do get 2 guys on him, he finds a way to split double teams or beat double teams. He's just a headache. So if you're going against a Slater, a Taiwan Jones, a Kasim Osgood, it would be blasphemy to not double team them. You got to double team those guys. Now, these guys right here, I won't say that they're slouches, but they're probably not the best. But we said if we get two guys on them, we're going to win out. Yep. And I'm looking at how we just now rushed. It wasn't a wall. It wasn't a return. It was just a straight man up, hold up, return middle. Guys just went to hold up, and we did a good job because Reggie's got room all across the board. Those jammers up top did a pretty good job too.
So I
Okay.
have a,
Can you
sorry,
rewind it real quick? You know what? This is something that the analysts could probably look at as well. I never thought about. Now, from this tight angle, you can't see the gunner right here, but if you see his angle of departure across the line of scrimmage, that's rarely going to be a win unless he's got exceptional speed. This guy ran away from the jammers, and you'll see him coming to the screen in a few seconds after the play starts. If you see a gunner behind the line, that's when I said, you know where your help is. If you get a gunner to go in there and he doesn't have exceptional speed to turn that corner, he's going to probably be one of the last individuals down or just be down with the rest of the crowd. And that's not what you want in your gunners. You want those guys to be the first one down in front of the ball. And typically, if they do take an inside release, they've got to take an aggressive angle, have some high velocity, and be able to beat that interior jammer. And he doesn't have that. He stopped again. He's like third to the fight. And, you know, from there, Reggie kind of makes a miss. Another thing is I talk about angle of departure. It's also change the direction or redirection. As a jammer, I got in a mix right here. I was in what they call no man's land, where I was done with my block and I didn't have anyone. The best move for a guy there would be to redirect. After you're done with your block, the gunner is no longer a threat. I can redirect and get upfield and potentially stop some of these chasers from, you know, trying to chase Reggie or embarrass themselves. Like right now, I can redirect and go upfield. Like, you see, I'm kind of in his way. It could have been a catastrophe. Reggie could have ran into me right there.
So I was going to ask, both of the last two plays we saw, they're both Reggie Bush returns, and they were both in the same game against the same team. But obviously, one of the plays you're double teaming the gunners, the other play you're not double teaming the gunners. What type of why does the strategy change still within the same game? Is it their formation? Is it whether you want to return? Is it where they're punting from? What factors might cause this?
So if we rewind it, I can think about a few different things that'll change it up. And it's the same way. Okay, we're at the 25 and they're coming out. We're on the left hash. The score could be a part of it. The field position could be a part of it. The part of the game, whether it be third quarter, fourth quarter, first quarter, it might just be getting a feel for them. You know, we don't typically have a lot of punts during a game. On a good day, we'll say, hey, we made them punt 4 times. And if the coach has some punt returns that he wants to call, he's going to call the one and say it works. He's going to you would think, hey, let's do it again. But if you do it again, it's similar to calling a play on offense that works. And then the very next play, let's call it again. Like, nah, you got to wait a little bit, give them a different look, and then come back to that one. So we hit a home run with the first one, and now we got another one coming up. Let's try a different return on them. And especially since we handled the gunners the first time, let's see if we can handle the gunners again and then get them a little bit off balance. Because we showed right here, well, the first return that we had guys exiting stage left, like going to set up the wall, and we still had them backed up. Now this time we said we're gonna actually go on a hold up and see if we can have them backed up. And we went that hold up, and it was basically the same result. So I think in this one, we just had a better matchup all across the board. And the coach he could have called a rush, and not to say Reggie would have returned it for a touchdown, but he would have had room to run because those gunners wouldn't have really caused any havoc.
Awesome. I think that's a pretty good summary of 5 punt plays. I just checked back on my audience questions. If I missed yours, I apologize. We got through about half dozen. We're hoping to do another session, maybe on kickoff plays, at some point down the road. And I guess, Usama, any last messages for folks using the tracking data, and just for folks that are just getting into the Big Data Bowl? The Big Data Bowl is a NFL competition, data science competition. It's run this year on the Kaggle website. It is free to register, and participants can sign up. You can sign up now as of late October. Submissions are due in early January, and they involve tracking data. This year, for the first time, we're sharing Pro Football Focus data, which has scouting insights that coaches would think about when they look at punt plays. And I think a pretty reasonable strategy is to listen to the last 45 minutes or so of what Usama is telling us, and think about how that could spur your Big Data Bowl submission forward. So Usama, any last messages in terms of thinking about submissions or your time playing on the punt and punt return teams?
A few things that come to mind that I think our coaches harped on throughout was speed and angles. Speed is something that you can't teach, but oftentimes angles can beat speed. So if the data that you all are gathering has something to do with how coaches can game plan and utilize both speed and angles, that would be great. I'm a steady learner, so I look forward to hearing about what data is analyzed here and what we come up with. But good luck to everyone, and I look forward to seeing these submissions continue to come through, and hopefully I get called back again to analyze some more film.
Awesome, Usama, that was really awesome. And we do speed and angles. I mean, that is tracking data. It's two-dimensional. You get the speed, you get the angles, and hopefully this helps some groups. Thanks again for your time, Tom and Jack. Thanks as well, and for all the folks that have listened. We appreciate your interest, and we'll hope you keep coming back to the Big Data Bowl.
Thank you, Tom. Get some tackles next time, man.